Time for coding challenge number 2. And in this one, your goal is to basically recreate what I'm just going to show you here on the screen. So when I open the page, then there will be an image loading in the background. And as soon as that arrives, it is displayed. Then after 2 seconds, it disappears and another image starts loading in the background. It is then also displayed. And again, after 2 seconds, it disappeared. And that's actually it. All right. So that's what I say right here. And so this time, the tasks are actually not going to be really descriptive. And so in this one, you should now pretend that you're actually working on your own. So at least a little bit. And in fact, this challenge is difficult on purpose. Okay, so this is not an easy one. But I hope that with some time and with some effort, and also with reviewing everything that we learned so far in this section, you can at least complete parts of this challenge. But anyway, let's now still take a look at your tasks here. So I want you to create a function called createImage, which receives as an input a variable called imagePath. So this is basically the path to an image that I will show you in a minute. Now this function should return a promise which creates a new image. So really a new image in the DOM, and for that you can use document.createElement with the image tag. And so this is how we learn to do it in the advanced DOM section, right? So you create that image and you set the source attribute to the provided image path that you received here. And as you already know, this setting the source path is an asynchronous operation. And so basically, your task in this part 1 is to promisifying all of that. So when the image is done loading, you should append that image to the DOM element that has the images class, and then resolve the promise. And the fulfilled value of the promise should be the image element itself. Okay? And in case there is an error while the image is being loaded, and so that is the error event that you need to listen for, so in that case, reject the promise. And again, if this part is too tricky for you, then you can always just start watching the solution, at least for this part. All right? And so after the first part of promisifying, the image loading comes, of course, consuming that promise. So after the image has loaded, I want you to pause the execution for 2 seconds using the wait function that we created previously. Then, after these 2 seconds have passed, I want you to hide the current image by setting display to none. And then you should load a second image. Now, in order to hide the current image, my hint here is that you use the image element that was returned by the createImage promise. So remember that the resolved value of the promise should be the actual image element itself. And so you can use that element to hide it. You will just need a global variable for that. But I hope that once you reach this part, you will notice that for yourself. Anyway, after the second image has loaded, so this part here in the step number 4. So after this has happened, I want you to pause execution again for 2 seconds. And then after these 2 seconds have passed, hide again the current image. So just to make sure you understood what exactly is needed, this is here what should happen. So the image is loading, then it's displaying, then it's hiding, and loading again. And so now it's hidden one more time. Now the images for doing this are here in this image folder. And so the path to these images is going to be image, so img slash, and then img1.jpg and img2. Okay? And here to actually see this effect, go to the network tab and set your speed to fast 3G, because otherwise the images are going to load too fast for you to actually see any effect. All right. So again, don't stress if this becomes overwhelming and too difficult. So I designed this one on purpose to be a real challenge for you. And so if you need to watch parts of the solution, then don't worry about that at all. Okay? As always, what matters is that you actually try. But anyway, good luck for this one, and take all the time you need, and then I see you back here. Okay, welcome back. So I hope that you did at least part of it. And so let's start with the solution here. So create image, which should take in an image path. And then whenever we are promisifying something, we always return a new promise. And also the promise is always done in the same way, at least in the beginning. So we have the resolve function and the reject function, which are received by our executor function. Okay, now we are told to create a new image using document.createElement. And so we want to create an element of the type image, and so that's img. And then all we need to do is to set the source property of that to the image path that is received. Okay, and so then on that image, we can wait for the load event. And so let's see what was the task here. So when the image is done loading, append it to the DOM element with the images class and resolve the promise with the image element itself. All right, so let's out here select the element with the images class. So img container, let's say, dot query selector images. Let's just take a look here in the HTML. And so that's this element here, right? Okay. And so again, we should now append the image to that element. And so that's img container dot append, just again, like we learned in the advanced DOM section. So if you skipped that one, then maybe you needed this part of the solution. All right. But anyway, now we also want to resolve the promise, because this load event, of course, means that loading the image was successful. And so this is where we will then resolve the promise. So mark it as successful. And remember, the resolved value should be the image. And now we should also listen to the error event. Remember? And so in this case, we will then reject the promise with a new error, as always. And let's say image not found, because that is probably the most likely error. So here it actually says that we should test the error handler by passing a wrong image path. And so the error message here that makes sense is this one. Okay. And so this should actually complete part 1. And I know that I'm doing it quite fast here, but that's because we actually did many of the things here already before, but simply in a different context. But we already know what resolve and reject do, and so this, I think, should be understandable, right? But anyway, let's now handle the fulfilled, so the successful promise. And so that's this part here. And so remember that here we received the image as the resolved value. And now actually we don't need to really do anything here. So because the image is already being appended to the DOM up here. And so for now at least, we can just log something to the console, like image1 loaded. And then a bit later, we will actually worry about waiting these 2 seconds. So let's go here to our part. And of course, I need to actually pass in the path to the image. So as I said, that's image, and then VS Code is nice enough to give us that path. And indeed, here is the image already. So as I said, I will just set it here to fast 3G now. And so now you see it's taking some time, but eventually it will arrive. And so as it arrived after that, then we logged to the console image1 loaded. And so again, that happened because the promise was actually resolved. Let's also right away add the catch handler. And so here we just want to log the error, and let's format this nicely. So let's just change the name here. And now we get our error. So image not found. All right. And so now here we could do something more realistic, like giving the user a real error message or something here on the screen. But in this case, that's simply not necessary. So let's go back here and tackle step number 3, which is to pause the execution for 2 seconds using this wait function we created earlier. So let's grab that here. So this one. And I'm going to put it right here at the beginning. All right. And so now in here, we will wait for 2 seconds. And so this is going to return a promise. So this part here. And so let's now return that so that we can chain the next then handler on that. And wait doesn't have any resolved value, remember. And so we don't specify any argument or any parameter in this function. And now remember, here what we want to do is to then hide this first image. So this one. However, this image is only defined in this function, but not in this one. And so that's why I said previously that we are going to need a global variable to do that. So let's do current image. And then here, all we do is to set current image to the image. And then we can hide it right here. So that's current image dot style dot display set to none. And so this should load the image, and then after 2 seconds, it will hide it. So let's wait for it. 1, 2, and there we go. Great. So we have that working as well. And now load a second image. And yeah, that's actually it. So then we just have to pause execution again after 2 seconds and then hide the current image again. And so this one is now going to be simply the same. So where are we going to load the next image? Well, it's going to be right here so that we can then chain the next then handler into our chain here. So we will return a new promise, which is the one that is returned by create image. And this time, so I'm missing the quotes. Okay. And then another then. And so here we are back to receiving an image. And now let's just do exactly the same. So we assign the current image to image so that in the next step we can then hide it. Then image2 loaded, and we wait 2 more seconds. And then in the next handler, we hide the current image again. And so let's see. So after the second image has loaded, pause execution for 2 seconds again. Check that we did. And then after 2 seconds have passed, hide the current image. So check again. So we did both. And so our code should be complete now. And so let's wait for it. 1, 2, and there it goes. So now the second one is loading in the background in 1-2 seconds. And that's it. That's our very small mini application, which had the simple goal of showing you how we can promisify this logic here of setting the source attribute of an image basically asynchronously. So I hope that you managed to do this part here. So promisifying all that, and also then understanding the logic that I wanted to implement here. And if you did something a little bit different, then that's of course not a problem at all. Okay? So I keep saying it, but that's just because it's really true. So what I want is you to try and to practice, and the results will follow. If not today, then some other day.